Rev up your engines!
Well, you know, old Tesla selling cars online. Well, the other car manufacturers are thinking about doing it now, too. Tesla pretty much pioneered, but now the other companies are thinking, hey, maybe we can sell these cars online and we can make all the money ourselves and not have to have dealerships do it. Now, if you don't understand exactly how car dealerships work, now, the car dealerships are private businesses that sell cars for the manufacturers. They aren't owned by the manufacturers, they're privately owned. Even in the case of the dealerships themselves, they don't even own the cars on the lot. They're paying a note just like you. They get big loans from banks, and then they pay each month on the cars they have, and then they try to sell them to you. This whole scene is fascinating because, of course, the car dealers are greedy. They want to make more money for themselves, and they don't care about the car dealerships. Of course, the problem here is there's legal issues. They gave these people the rights to sell cars in certain areas for their manufacturers, right? Well, if all of a sudden they say, we're going to sell them ourselves, they're probably breaking all kinds of legal precedences. Who knows how far this will go? They're thinking they want to do it, but they're obviously breaking legal precedents. It's tempting to do this, right? Because they got to have contracts with these people. I imagine they'd have the heck suit out of them if they said, oh, we're going to sell them ourselves now, too. I find the whole thing myself to be hilarious because, of course, now they're building more cars, but it's to their advantage at the dealerships to show that they don't have too many, because then they can say $5,000 over MSRP because that's the last one on the lot, right? So it makes them look like, hey, there's less cars, they can sell them for more money. They're still making cars. For example, GM, they just closed production down for a while for the pickup trucks because they got too many of them they can't sell, right? So they say, oh, we got too many of them now. The bean counters, of course, have taken over, where you don't want to stock too much. Let's not have too many. And then if something happens, coronavirus or whatever, some chip shortage, something happens bad, then they don't have a big supply to sell to people. They don't think that far ahead. The bean counters are like, if you have less in stock, then we have less money in it, so we have a higher profit, blah, blah, blah. And now they're thinking, hey, maybe we can sell the cars directly without the dealerships. Well, good luck legally with that. I'm sure the dealerships would sue the pants off of them if they decided they're going to do it direct and compete against their own dealerships. Even though they don't own the dealerships, hey, they got to have contracts with them trying this. Be interested to see what they try to pull off. Maybe they'll try to pull it off with electric cars, because that's a new thing. Maybe they'll be like Tesla. Their electric versions they'll sell themselves, and then the gasoline ones they'll sell. Who knows? Who knows? It'll be one gigantic miasmic mess, though, I can guarantee you that. Well, Ford's lack of quality rolls down the road. Now they're recalling some Mavericks, Broncos, and F-150s because they might not have tightened the bolts on the rear brake calipers correctly. If you're curious, the recall number is 23S11, where they say they may have loose brake caliper bolts. Dealers will inspect and tighten the bolts if need be. How about some quality control where you put them on tight in the first place, right? I mean, come on now. When they're building those things, they're supposed to be torqued down. The job is just torque, 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 right? So either a human isn't torquing them right, or if they got a robot doing it, the robot's not doing its job. But it just shows Ford's quality. They can't even tighten brake calipers. This is now. Imagine when these things get older and things start falling apart on them. Ford isn't even going to start telling people by April 10th. There's still, 2.5 weeks, as of when I'm making this video, that you won't even know about it. So, hey, if I owned one of those, you know what I'd do? I'd get on there with my torque wrench, and I'd make sure those bolts are on tight. It's a simple thing to do. But the fact that you have to do that on brand new vehicle tells you their quality is just down the toilet. President of Ford says, oh, we're going to make it better. Looks to me like they're making it even worse than they were before. All talk and no action. A bunch of them are Mavericks. Where are the Mavericks made? Mexico. Every single Maverick is made in Mexico. They can't even tighten the bolts on the brakes right. That says something. It says quality is certainly not job number one at Ford. But here's a good one. A judge is now allowing a class action suit against GM for faulty automatic transmissions. As a mechanic, I know they've made faulty automatic transmissions. Now, these are GM products with the GM 8L90 8-speed automatic transmission and the 8L45, made between 2015 and March 1st, 2019. They can lurch and shudder. Yeah, I see it all the time when they wear out on these things. And here's what the lawyer says, who's involved, who's running a class action suit. He says, General Motors knowingly sold over 800,000 8-speed transmissions, which they knew to be defective for years, yet made the business decision not to tell the customers before purchase. Dealers were directed to tell the customers that hardships were normal or characteristics. Such decision-making is highly irresponsible and emblematic of what GM believes it can get away with. Yes, there you go. The guy explained it all. For once, a lawyer says something in language that everyone can understand. Tons of my customers, they take it to the deal. Oh, that's normal. That's how those things are. You know, basically, they didn't make the 8-speed transmissions right. Any mechanic will tell you they've been having problems with those things, right? And then GM, oh, that's normal. Don't worry about it. But then when they finally break, by then, they're almost always out of warranty. And then, of course, they'll sell you another transmission, right? But they're not going to fix the one that they put in the first place that they knew had problems. So if you have problems with your GM transmission like that with the 8-speed, hey, join the class action suit. Look it up. It's real easy to get into those things. Just put GM class action suit for 8-speed trans. Man, you'll get there. You can join in on a class action suit. And this covers a whole bunch of them. 2017 to 19, Silverado. 2017 to 19, Colorado. 2015 to 19, Chevy Corvette. 2016 to 19, Chevrolet Camaro. 2015 to 19, Cadillac Escalade. 2016 to 19, Cadillac ATS. 2015 to 19, GMC Sienna Yukon. And the 2017 to 19, GMC Canyon. So if you've got one of those 8-speed transmission that's acting up, join the suit. GM wouldn't admit it, and they just tell you it's normal. It may be normal for their products because they're not made all that well, but they shouldn't be selling these things to the public and expecting them to fix them out of their own pocket. Tamish Gen 7 says, my 2013 RAV4 with only 36,000 miles, automatic transmission. When I'm driving on a bumpy road, it literally turns off for 1 or 2 seconds and comes back on. The steering locks, which can make it dangerous when it does. Took it to the dealership. They said they can't find anything wrong with it. You say the steering locks when it does that stall. The steering locks, you got a problem in the ignition system, right? You hit a bumpy road, maybe there's loose wires or something, but when the power goes off, the steering wheel will lock too. Film it, take it to them, tell them it's a safety issue. You know, they're just passing them like, oh, we can't find anything wrong. Oh, they put a scan tool on it. We can't find anything wrong. They don't spend any time looking at it or analyzing it, right? And to them, it's an 11-year-old vehicle, so they don't care. They'll buy a new one, forget that. You got some kind of electrical problem in the ignition. Might just need an ignition switch. It could be as simple as that. I mean, if you want to try yourself and forget those bozos, go to an independent mechanic like me, explain your problem and say, could you replace my ignition switch? He'll tell you how much it costs to replace it, and it might very well fix it. Because if your steering wheel's locking, it's got something to do with your ignition switch. I would just replace that and see what happens, and that should fix it. Now, the thing is, if you got a bad ignition switch, it's not going to trip any codes usually. So they're just putting a scan tool. There's no codes. We don't know what's wrong with it. Next. They don't care. They don't have guys that really do analytical stuff anymore in dealerships. They're just parts pushers. They want to sell you stuff, and if they don't have a code, they don't know what to do, and they just say, oh, we can't find anything wrong with it. Les Paul 1963 says, I'm looking for a car battery using more modern technology. I watched your stuff about lead-acid batteries, and I thought, are there any drop-in replacement car batteries like nickel-metal hybrid or lithium-ion? There are, but I don't advise you to buy one. You need a lot of cranking power for starting a car running. Right? Those batteries are not made for that. I tried one in my motorcycle and it ended up shorting out the main computer. It just didn't jive with the system of the vehicle. It just did. They don't have enough power, and they're prohibitively expensive. For example, I have one that I was trying out in some cars. It's an ion battery. The battery's like $750, and it started okay. It doesn't have the cranking amps that even a $150 lead-acid one does, right? But it costs so much money, and it doesn't have that many cranking amps. It's kind of stupid to use. The only guys that I know are racers, because racing cars, weight means everything, and those things weigh like sometimes less than 1/4 of what the regular battery weighs. They don't weigh much. So the race guys, they'll use them. And I mean, let's face it, race guys aren't starting and stopping their engines all that much, They're racing around. I wouldn't swap over in a car. You want to mess around with some little thing like your lawn tractor and stuff like that. I've seen them work okay in them, but for an engine that's got a lot of power to start it up, stick to the lead acid. If you want a longer lasting battery, get an absorbed glass mat lead acid battery. AGM they're called. They cost more, but they do last better and they have better cranking, and they're compatible with any car. They're just a better made type of battery. AGM. Fireball 415 says, which of these sedans ones are better? I'm looking at a 2010 Lincoln MKS all-wheel drive V6 with 102,000 miles. The other's a 2013 Honda Accord Sport with 140,000 miles, but it has a CVT transmission in the Honda. I don't like CVTs, but here Honda makes decent ones. What do you think of those two? I would not buy the Lincoln MKS with over 102,000 miles in all-wheel drive. It's getting kind of to the end of its lifespan. The Honda engine is going to run forever, and the CVTs aren't horrible in Hondas. I don't see them breaking down like mad. If you can handle the way it drives, if you don't mind that type of drivability, how it's a little bit laggy, especially on a 2013. If you were talking about a 2023 Honda, I'd say definitely get the Honda. The new ones, really, they've upped their game with their CVT transmissions. But a 2013 is a relatively early one. So I personally wouldn't buy either of those cars if I were you. But if you're forced to, I'd get the Honda over the Ford for sure. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.